Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Green Factor, a show where we talk about green design and the business of sustainability. I'm your host, Haris the Green Carpenter, and today we'll be having a unplugged session. So every month we'll have a, a collaboration with Unplug, where we bring in brands that are going to share their story. So without much ado, I will invite Mia to the screen. Hi, Mia.
Hi, Harith. Thanks for having me this month.
Yeah, we missed last month, right?
Yep, yep.
So, but doesn't matter. We are back, and this week we have a special guest. But before we continue with our guest, I want to just recap a little bit about the eight metrics and what you guys do at Unplug.
Sure. So here at Unplug, we are an eco-conscious retail shop. And the whole idea behind Unplug was to raise awareness and nurture an eco-conscious retail network. So we host over 50 brands from Malaysia and around the world. We started 3 years ago. We have a shop in Bangsar, Kuala Lumpur. And really, what it is bringing together a network and a community to promote values that mean a lot to us. And they revolve around these 8 eco metrics that we work around and curate around. And these eco metrics are eco-friendly materials, packaging, sustainable procurement, zero waste innovation, social impact, preserving traditional skills, and fair trade. So you can learn more about what we do at our website, www.shopunplug.com. So today I'm very excited because we're going to be touching upon the metric of preserving traditional skills with a very special brand and a new brand, House of Rami.
Hey guys,
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming in, all the way from Italy.
From boiling hot 40-degree Italy, yeah, in the middle of the heat.
Climate change. Climate change.
Exactly.
Yeah. So today we're gonna talk a little bit about what you guys do, the philosophy behind it, and all the awesome stuff. But before we go into that, I think for the benefit of the viewers and listeners, I want to just know a little bit background about what you guys do. I think maybe Aaron, you can start first, and then we go to Shan, and then like how the brand come together.
Sure. Um, so my background originally is in film and media. So I studied acting in New York, filmmaking in London, and then I went into writing, and I kept exploring the world of storytelling. That was really my area. And for that, I did that for many years, especially the writing stuff. And I'm originally from Milan, so this is my second hometown. I'm half German, half Italian, so from Berlin and Milan, those are my cities. Um, and I lived in Milan when I was 18, 19, and I was in the modeling world. My sister was in the fashion world, and as I said, I then ventured into other forms of storytelling. And you want me to tell how this brand came to be, or do you want to jump into John's
Maybe you
background?
can touch a little bit.
Well, basically, what happened was it was quite an interesting experience because as the whole world got affected equally, we also got affected by COVID, and all our world shut down, and everyone started questioning their lives and what are we doing and what's our purpose. And the same thing happened to us. And me and Shan had been friends for quite some time now. She also had come to visit me in Italy many times before, in Germany. And she, having her background in textile design, thought of an idea of a brand that would do things differently. And she thought, and she saw a gap in the market. Basically, I don't want to speak for her now, but I guess it's my turn. She saw a gap in the market, which was that no one was doing one thing. No brand was focusing on one item and becoming a master at it. So she noticed that gap, and she noticed or felt that we could combine our skills, at least with her textile experience and fashion experience and design experience and art experience and my storytelling experience. We could combine our skills and make something different, and that really hopefully has an impact not only on the environment, but also on the fashion world itself, which is quite boring and sterile right now, and it's going through a midlife crisis, in my opinion. So yeah, that's how we got together, and we've been in it ever since.
Cool. Shan.
Hi. So I'm Shan. Hi, everyone. So my background is in textile design. I studied textile design in St. St. Martin's in London, and before that, I grew up in India for 5 years. And in India, it's such a rich country for textiles, like colors, materials, artisans, weavers. So growing up in India in the mountains, there were weavers everywhere, weaving like wool scarves, wools, like silk, cashmere products. So it's always been like throughout my life, textiles has played quite an important role. So when I returned back to Malaysia, I remember bringing my collection to this producer, textile production team. I won't say who, obviously, but it's like for a big company, and we all know these companies. And they just wanted to buy my collection and just scan it and just print it in mass, because they wanted to hit like the large quantities. However, I said the textiles that I do, which is an ikat technique, which I'm specializing in, you can't recreate that same technique on like printed. It doesn't have the same feel. So you can buy my designs, but you won't get the same handmade feel, right? Or the uniqueness. So that's when in my head, I realized actually upon returning home that people don't actually place so much emphasis or importance on the textiles. And so it was like my mission to kind of, bring that to the front. And with House of Rami, I get a platform where I can really explore textiles. I can explore like working with artisans. I can design everything from scratch and know where everything is coming from. And that is really satisfying for me. Yeah.
Because just to share with you, I've been looking I've been following you for quite some time in terms of what you do and all that, and I find it very interesting. So before we go into the nitty gritty, just a question for you in terms of how do you marry art? Because I think your passion is more towards the art itself rather than the design and fashion. How
Yeah.
do you combine those two? Because like fashion is mostly about the mass, like not if not mass, but it's always a bit more than one, and art is more like a one-off thing and or a collection. This kind
Absolutely.
of thing. How do you see that?
So obviously in the art world, when you create a piece, you put hours and hours into one piece, right? And it's quite unique. And in the fashion world, everything is really fast. It's like, let's produce like 300, 400,000 pieces. And for me, that doesn't really align with my values and like generally the way I live my life. So like, say for example with House Rami, I can create like very unique limited edition pieces, and the word art is in the word artisanal itself. So we work with artisanal people, and that's how I marry them and find this middle ground. It's very important. Also, I guess.
It's also safe to say that it's difficult. It's
Yeah.
actually that is our main topic of constant going over it over and over again, because we keep struggling with the world of fashion and our and our values. That's always been like that's constant clash,
Like an obstacle. Yeah.
because every time we start to sort of take the direction of the fashion, we feel it, we get upset, something is wrong, and we keep trying to go like, no, we go back to what we want to do, we want to make something special, that's the most important thing. And it's very, very difficult, and only now are we realizing like, okay, this is what we have to do. We're sort of developing our own little moral compass, shall we say, that prevents us from getting distracted or lost in the fashion world. And it's an ongoing process, I think, and it's going to go on and on and on and on, and you have to keep checking yourself, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's
I
really
mean,
hard.
for me,
Yeah.
in our name itself, House of Rami. Rami means hemp in Malay, and like the first fabric in the world that was made was hemp, or the first piece of
Yeah,
paper that
natural,
was
yeah.
made is in hemp. So just by looking at our name, like ideally we can always be reminded that okay, go back to the roots.
Go back to the roots.
Always go back
That's
to
what
the
it's about.
roots.
Go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love that. I was just gonna ask you the meaning behind the name.
Right. Yeah. And House is Haus because he's German and
Hmm.
Italian, and Rami is hemp in Malay, and I'm Malaysian, so it's
Yeah. And it's a
Nice.
grounding process. The name means don't forget where you are, like your home and the roots. Like don't forget where you come from and what you're really doing. Like that's always gonna. Whenever we get lost, we just have to think about like the brand, and the brand has its own thing, and we have to look what's the best thing for House of Rami, not for us, or and that helps us a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I think the ethical part of the being in the capitalist system has always been an issue for a lot of us,
Yeah,
Yep.
it's so hard
especially
to
yeah,
juggle.
So
You know?
yeah. But we try to do what's best. Like we need to consume stuff, right? So
Yeah,
we need to consume the right stuff with the right things and all that. So I think Mia, we can go into the nitty gritty now.
Yeah, cool.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to know more about how you guys. I know you guys have been friends for a very long time.
hmm
When did this idea kind of sparked between the two, and how did you guys finally get the guts to kind of like come together and materialize it?
yeah, it's COVID. It's Mama COVID took care of everything, and it was. I remember it was actually very spontaneous, extremely awkwardly spontaneous. I remember sitting on my friend's floor watching a movie with him, and I get a little text from Shan, and she's like, "Look at this piece. I don't know what it was, a shirt or a jacket or something." I was like, "Yeah, cool." And she goes, "We should make these. We can do it better." And I go, "Yeah, I guess it'll be cool. Yeah, like that." And then she's like, "Yeah, we should do it because I know how to do this stuff, and I'll show you how to open a brand, and we'll get started." And I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And the next day, we just opened everything. We started calling
Wow.
the bank. She went over there. It was also we were during the COVID, so I couldn't come over. So she was running around doing all the paperwork. She applied for the company. We registered, and we just spent months developing the branding and the tone and learn. I was mainly learning about all these because that was not my area. And it just we just went into it. We just kind of fell and didn't stop rolling basically, and it's been very very spontaneous. And also the thing why it's like the healthy thing about it is that because we did it in that way, we're constantly questioning. We're not just entering a sort of prearranged block like everyone else
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
That's how the
Yeah.
fashion world works. We just do this because we're so
Yeah.
spontaneous and free in it. We're allowing ourselves to just mess around and to be really bold, to make mistakes, and to
Right.
and
So
that's
I've got
also
to ask this because it's so spontaneous. Are you guys doing this on the side, or this is full time? You're kind of
uh,
reliant on
it
this.
was supposed to be, but it's becoming more and more our full time.
yeah.
I mean, it's Shan.
It is my full time
It's
for
full
sure.
time, and for me, I moved to Malaysia for like 3 or 4 months just
Yeah.
to for this. And like we take it very seriously, and we're falling in love with it more and more. That's the nice thing. Like the more we see what we can do, which we're looking forward to showing the world soon, the more we're like, man, we have something, and we have to do it because it's a
Yeah.
shame
Yeah.
that it's like yeah, it's taking up our time, and we're happy that it is. Like it's a worthy cause in our minds.
For
Yeah.
us,
I
like
hope.
we have a
Yeah.
shared vision of like aesthetics. We understand like each other in a way, so that's how we work well together. Because otherwise I wouldn't be working with Aaron.
Yeah.
Because
For
we both
sure.
understand, where we want to head the direction and what kind of clothing do we want to create. We have all that on the same page,
Yeah.
so that's good. Yeah.
Cool. I love that you guys call yourself shirt makers because it's not something that we hear anymore. It's more like something we hear from old movies, and it seems very like,
Exactly.
quaint and ancient. And like, I think the idea, even like artisanal goods, it's kind of like put in a box to such a niche group rather than being a norm. And I know that back in the days, that was a norm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So yeah, I tell me more about how you see the brand moving towards reviving this idea.
I think the moment we said we're shirt makers, everything changed. Like that was the most important move we did for our identity. I think. I don't know if you would agree with that.
Absolutely, because menswear in the menswear world, there's so many pieces of garments. There is the trousers; it could be long, short. There's jackets. There is like gilets. There is like tops. There's like accessories. And I decided, like we talked about it, and we decided, okay, let's limit ourselves to just shirts, and let's focus on being craftsmen and being like professional in that one thing, which is the art of
Mm.
shirt making. And we just want to over each collection just get better and better and better, and
It's
just keep
it's also
crafting.
what
Yeah.
what you said. The important thing for us was to create that feeling of walking into an old shop in the old days and knowing that
Mm.
in here there's a master at whatever you're looking for. This guy, this person is the one that does this, that spends their
Yeah.
life. And that feeling is so cozy. We don't have that anymore.
Yeah, I know. I think that's the thing that I fell in love with about it when I saw your branding, your communications, and the product itself is that it gives an experience and a meaning that you don't come across anymore typically, right? So you guys are doing such a great job. Tell me more about your design process and principles. Like, we want to know.
So
I know that we've only seen like one shirt, so I
yeah.
want to know, what is the House of Rami signature and what does that look like?
Okay, I mean, first and foremost, we always create shirts that are wearable, that are actually functionable. Because I know in the fashion mall, we can go crazy. There's a lot of brands creating really like couture pieces, but like actually for the everyday man, it's not tailored to them. It's not relatable. So for us, first and foremost, we want to be relatable to the everyday man, the people who wake up and work, work so hard, whether it be like the workmen or people who go to offices or people who just feed their families. Mainly for us, our biggest inspiration, our fathers, our grandfathers, our heritage.
Yeah.
So our next collection will be drawing inspiration from those garments that we see in their photographs. How do we pay homage to them, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
people who brought us to this earth.
Exactly.
Yeah. So moving forward.
And also, it's what we like to do is, so we're shirt makers first and foremost, but our second little logo is textile exploration. We love, because of Shanshan's vast knowledge in the subject, we love to play with materials, and we love to show how material, design, and story. Whoops, here my hands. Can create something really unique, right? Because usually most, I mean, I shouldn't say this, but I think many brands nowadays use one or the other. Too much textile, too much design, and this and that, and no one's understanding that there's a process that goes behind making a shirt, which involves fundamental art or artisanal crafts, which need to come together, and they need to be, the light needs to be shone on them. So when Shan, as she's doing now, when she's developing a new piece, she's always thinking, what material is the best for this piece? Why is this material the best for this piece? And then which colors can we use? And then she thinks we think of the story together, like how would our grandfather wear this? How would her grandfather in Malacca, would he be sitting on the porch and smoking a cigarette in the heat wear this? And my German grandfather in the forests of Bavaria. So I think there's so much that goes into the actual, or at least the way we design. It's so much more there's so much more that comes behind it than just the cut is the most.
Yeah. But maybe like you guys can explain to us, or like just share with the audience who might not be aware, right? Who are not close to like, doing arts, or, delving into creative processes. What does it typically look like in terms of fast fashion production versus someone who is a maker?
Okay. So fast fashion, usually the thing with fashion is people usually take inspiration from other people creating. So sometimes there's a lot of plagiarism that is involved, right? They just take some idea, they take some things here and there, and they just Photoshop it and they do it and they print
And they want
it out.
it simple. They want it easy
and
process.
they print it very quickly because of the MOQs and the cheap material. They're exploiting someone else somewhere else in the world, when it's so cheap. So they print on polyester, they print on all these fabrics, and they don't actually think about from the start to the end as like people used to do in the past. Because say in the past, if you go to a tailoring shop to get some shirt tailored for you, everything in the past wasn't like polyester. It was wool or like handspun or like cotton or something. You go in there, you actually select the fabric that is suited to you, depending on the weather, depending on the temperature, depending on your body type, everything. And then you choose the fabric, and then you get the design drawn out, and then you get measured. Everything is custom fit. So House of Rami, we're not like a proper tailoring shop where we have to, otherwise it'll be too slow for our business. It doesn't make sense. So we're trying to like merge both, right? Where we're doing slow fashion, but not too slow either. So we're trying to cater to everyone else who can, the everyday man, and like create pieces that are not too large in production. And that's why we have limited edition as well, right? So we start with the concept. This is how our process is. We start with the concept, whether it's referencing like images from the past, memories, heritage, culture, architecture, art, color palette from paintings. We move to the design development process where we sketch everything out. We work with our tailor. We work with we do all the pattern cutting ourselves, and do trial and error. We have prototype 1 with like just a basic canvas fabric. Then we move on to prototype 2 with like the actual fabric, and then moving on, we get the samples made. So then you can see like the evolution of the collection. And we
I guess
for next collection. So
yeah. Like, do you guys work, like, how do you plan towards like, okay, well, this is, the price can be up to here. This is the cap. So how do we manage that, right? Because I know that because you guys are working backwards, most businesses, not necessarily makers or artists, would work the other way, where they're like, I want to make this much of profits, let me just cut down the cost and see where I can get at to sell at this point. How do you guys manage that and go about it?
So I'm assuming you're asking about like the business model, like how does our way of doing things affect our business model? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
That's actually one of the things we had to surrender the most in an interesting way. Like we can, when you're creating art pieces or pieces that have value to you intrinsically, you cannot develop a system. So the way I learned it is that, so I have some other businesses which I run on the side, and it's very clear the more you work in business that, especially in textile, the only way textile can be cheap is if someone's being exploited. That's the only way it works. There is no other way, because materials cost a certain amount and labor costs a certain amount, and that's it. Like if you're getting it cheaper, someone's getting an unfair treatment outside. So we thought, okay, if that's the case, we have to build up to a business model. That means put our focus on our values and our actual designs, and show what we can do, show how we can showcase ourselves. And as the demand increases, we follow the demand rather than build a demand and try to get audience towards it, right? So better put, build an audience, then cater to the audience, rather than build a product and look for the audience to sell it. Because that's what most businesses do.
Yeah.
They come in with a large investment. They say they get 100,000, whatever. They build a whole product. They make 100 shirts here, 500 shirts there. And then their job is to sell them and to go out and sell them. And that creates an unpleasant business experience, because you're now stuck. You're a slave almost to your own product, and then you're selling in a dishonest way, because your aim is to make profit now, to make your money back. So it's stress and it's like fear.
Yeah.
So instead of doing that, we do very slow, and we were like, look, well, this is what we can do. Who is interested? Our next piece is we're aiming towards pre-order more than we are to anything else. We're going to do pre-order, and we'll say, this is how long it takes to make a good shirt. If you want one, this is how it's going to be. This is the cost it's going to take, and this is how long it's going to take to make it. Either you are with us and understand this, or there's nothing else we can do, because we're not going to lie to you. We're not going to play the game that everyone else does, because then what's the point? Then you're just another brand. That we're looking at the pre-order model to help us out, and
We'll find a balance.
Balance.
Yeah, and I also like, this idea of like slow fashion, which is like a term that we're slowly hearing nowadays, slow living, slow fashion. Would you guys want to touch point base on what that means to you, and the idea of time, because you are taking it step by step, one piece at a time.
Yeah. I mean, slow fashion, I know the word slow seems almost like a negative connotation, but actually slow is not, it doesn't equate to lazy. It just means that we're actually putting more thought than fast fashion brands. It just means that we're slowing down in where it's necessary. Where is the textiles coming from? Working with the artisans, giving them the space and time to actually create those products and do it properly.
And showing the audience.
Exactly.
Showing them what it means to make a shirt.
And it also means that we're not creating like 10 collections a year. Maybe cut down to 2 collections a year. But in those 2 collections, the quality is better over quantity.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's what's
I think like a lot of people, like we sacrifice, I mean, for the convenience of instant purchase, instant gratification, we sacrifice quite a lot. And like even when it comes to like running your own brand and looking at production, they say, okay, if you give me bigger quantity, more scale, then we can bring the price down. But there's also a cost to that, right? Because you can only squeeze so much, and then the producers end up working overtime. It's crazy.
Cycle.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's why we wanted to pull ourselves out of it. We just said, let's not get caught up in the whole thing. That's really important. And it's hard to do, because you want to. You kind of, it drags you in, like, oh my god, we got to make profits and
it's business, right?
Yeah, the business.
Yeah.
Business. And that's the way it is. And I think, to go back to what you were asking before, I think the most important thing for us about slow fashion is to educate. Like if I show you why it takes time to make a shirt, you'll understand it and you'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
Fast fashion has taught you that you can get it quickly. And then, so you're thinking, I can get it quickly, so why would I not? But if we show you why it's worth to get it slowly, you'll buy it because you think, wow, I can't wait for this piece to come. Look how much time. Look how they do it. Oh, I didn't know that they draw everything out. Oh, I didn't know that they go to this place to get the shirts. And that's kind of our ethos. Like people will people like the fact that things are made slow if they feel it's made for them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we like
Yep.
to do. You know, like this is made for you. We're gonna take it, and then it feels really special when they get it. They're like, "Oh my god, it finally came." You know, my
Yeah.
so
I think
that's
I love the way you guys like trying to find balance, because it's very difficult to do that. Like for
Absolutely.
us, we are manufacturers, so our
yeah.
our thinking is slightly a bit different. But we try. I think the new way of doing business, or we see social enterprise or companies that are caring about how ethical they are. They
Mhm.
have different kind of ethical problems that each industry need to sort on its own. So it's
Right.
interesting to see how you guys are doing it on your side. Um, but my question would be, one, is it certain companies, if they want to launch, they will launch a collection and few of them. So why do you decided, okay, one, since 2021 is one. There is one story, one question, and then the other one is the material. When we talk about sustainable fabrics, there are a hemp, there are linen, there are also like composite or like biodegradable
Even
stuff,
organic
recycled
cotton, even
plastic.
cotton is
Yeah.
very.
So how why do you choose hemp over everything beside just being the first fabric?
Most sustainable.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite for us. It was a no-brainer. Like as you said, hemp is the most sustainable. There's no question. Hemp is the most sustainable natural plant fiber you can use nowadays. There's nothing that beats it. Linen comes close, bamboo comes close, but ultimately, hemp is the most sustainable. The first question was why
Why
one
one
shirt?
shirt?
Is that was that correct?
Yes, yes.
The why one shirt is a good question, and it's because we were very ambitious, and we said, look, if we can show people what story we can tell and what marketing we can do and what our skills are with one white shirt, that's the most plain item in the
Iconic.
world. Like white shirt is the white shirt. You can get a white shirt anywhere. There's
Yeah.
nowhere you can go where you can't get a white shirt. And we said, look, we'll start with that. We won't even come and be ambitious and be look at our designs. We'll be like, no, no, no. Look at our vision first. Look at what we can do with the most simple version, and then get ready for what comes afterwards, right? So it was actually making life more difficult for us on purpose. We said, if we can do this, if we can sell out the white shirts, and if we can tell a story, and we can get onto a podcast, or if we can get people talking about us with a white shirt, then we're on. Then imagine what we can do with our regular stuff.
But hence the title, The Blank Canvas, because
It's
as
the
an
beginning.
artist, you start with a blank canvas and then you start painting your artwork. So for us, it was like,
Yeah.
it has a really good
Yeah.
meaning.
Yeah, when I saw that the blank canvas, I was like, oh, of course it's Shan's work.
Yeah.
No,
It's
Darren.
an awesome kind of way to put your art inside your
Yeah.
brand as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah, we just wanted to establish the brand with at least the canvas, like the start.
And everyone asked that question, and that's what we
Yeah.
wanted. Everyone says one shirt, and we go, yeah, and they go,
Yeah.
okay, cool. I guess, yeah.
You,
It sticks out in their head.
you guys are putting your foot down.
Oh yeah,
Yes,
we're putting
yes,
a foot
you
down.
have to do that.
Yeah, exactly. And as
I
far
think
as
it
hemp
yeah,
goes, just quickly, we can just be like, it is the most sustainable material out there. It is fascinating. It's ancient. It's so
Okay, I've
so.
got to ask you something controversial.
Ooh.
Why isn't it available? Like, we've heard so many benefits of hemp, not just for clothing, but for so many things.
Yeah,
And,
medicine,
it's
food, everything.
2022. Why is it not used and available?
Okay, first of all, the hemp fabric specifically is because hemp, as you know, is like used for ropes and sails, right? It's really
Yeah.
rough, and there's a specific like machine or technique that our producers use to make it as smooth as linen. It feels like actually in the beginning like silk. So that part is actually the most expensive part, and that's actually like difficult for many manufacturers to have because not everyone has the same kind of way of processing the hemp. Secondly, where we source from India, there is a limited amount of land that's allowed to grow hemp because people associate hemp with cannabis, like with like the high THC values, and weed is like illegal in many countries, in Malaysia specifically as well, even for medical benefits and stuff. So there is like a limit to how much hemp we can grow, but actually the hemp that we use is from the same like family, but it's different. It has low THC values.
Almost
And-
none, actually. There,
Yeah.
actually, almost none.
Yeah, and it's actually like the male version. So usually it's like the female plants that gets used in like the medicinal products, and the male plant actually gets like just chucked away. It's just waste. So what we're doing is
Okay.
actually, like, using the male plant, which is usually chucked, and actually they take that and they turn that into products: hemp seeds, hemp oil, hemp fabric, etc. Yeah.
Right.
It's a
Okay.
controversial one because, ironically, it was actually up until maybe the 18th century. It was compulsory in England to grow hemp for the empire.
Oh,
Everyone had to grow
wow.
hemp because they used it in every aspect of,
Yeah.
of their life. Like, it
The
was
ships,
clothing, it was the ship sails were
sails.
made out of it, the ropes were made out
Yeah.
of it. George Washington notoriously grew hemp, and everyone used hemp in America. It was very
Yeah.
common. And then a certain turn, I think early 20th century, there was a huge court case in America which led to the criminalization of the plant entirely, and that spread into the world. And now we're kind of
Okay.
coming out of it again. There's a resurgence in hemp, which is
It's always a thing of going back to basics, right? Going back to what our
Absolutely.
grandparents and grandparents did.
especially these days. You see
Yeah.
that we're doing everything wrong, and
It's like you question, are we really progressing?
that's it.
Absolutely.
Or progressing into what? Like, where are we actually heading to? We might be going somewhere, but not the right direction. That's for sure.
I mean, for House of
Right.
Rami, we also think about like, will our products, every time we create something, we think about, will our products stand the test of time? We get our inspiration from our grandfathers and our forefathers, but we want to actually create products for the future generation, for our future kids, for the future generation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
Like,
touching
yeah.
just a little bit, Mia, since because
Sure.
you guys are talking about the how we used to be as well. Like, one of the things that I'm a proponent of is looking backwards as well, because like in my culture, for example, the Malay culture, if you look at our ancestors, they design houses that are suitable for the temperature. They rainwater harvest. They bring like packed lunch and those kind of things. So these are all sustainable things. They don't even know what sustainable thing is, but
Yeah.
they are practicing it. And
Yeah.
because of the modernization and all that, we start to go into this whirlwind of modernity, so called. But now we are seeing the negative effect of it. So right
Exactly.
now, what we need to move is how we can move forward by actually looking back as well. So we shouldn't see it as, oh, it's too kuno. What is kuno? Old fashioned or something like that. But actually take the elements and find way how we can use it in a modern setting, so called.
Yeah.
So I do agree with that. I think we should take a step back as well to be able to leap forward.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I love that you guys are bringing back storytelling and you both have such talent for that. I know a lot of people, like in terms of education, a lot of people talk about the environmental impacts of fast fashion and just production nowadays, but no one is really deeply touching base on the effects of it on culture. And I think that that's more of what you guys are doing with, bringing back meaning and values. Tell me more about your vision for that and lost values that you want to revive.
I mean, in terms of textiles, our dream is to like preserve existing traditions that are dying out, weaving techniques that will be lost in a few years' time, to preserve that and give space to innovation, but without, going too fast, without, impulsively just jumping on to the design, but like actually focusing on preserving the tradition, but innovating that and creating new designs, but supporting the community as well. And for me, that is like actually more sustainable if you can support a community of people and artisans, right?
Yeah. What are you guys looking to? I mean, are you guys looking into different global weaving traditions, or are you specifically, zooming into certain regions?
We started with Malaysia, right? So we will be working with the Malaysian weavers in Pahang. But
Very cool.
already we've like looked into weavers in India, in Kerala, in West Bengal,
in Italy
in
now.
Italy as well.
Yeah.
We will be slowly expanding.
Our dream is that as we grow, we can constantly, with each collection, shed a light onto some community that collaborated with us, right? We would like to work with different communities and show like also ancient Italian Neapolitan tailors who've been doing this for hundreds and hundreds of years, or people in Malaysia or wherever we go. Not only do we work with materials from different regions, but then we would like to highlight the groups that are indigenous to that region, that have been working with this material before us and know how to treat it better than anyone else. And that whole part of the storytelling is what gets us both really excited, because then that's when the purpose comes in, when you feel like, oh, there's meaning to what we're doing here.
Yeah.
So
No, I
that's
think
very
it's so, yeah, it's so important because I mean, our first episode of this talk was with a brand, Nisa Kapas. I'm sure you guys have heard of them. She's Malaysian based, and she's really preserving the traditional batik making in Malaysia. But I just the importance of like when traditions are lost, when you lose a handicraft or a craftsmanship or a skill, it's actually losing your identity. Like future generations have zero idea about our history, and that is, a form of colonization to me as well. When identities are purposely lost and erased. So I definitely think that traditional arts should be preserved because it's culture, it's history, it's identity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's our job to kind of educate the consumer on that, right? Because they're the ones who ultimately make the decision. They have in their hands the fate of these artisans. Because if they choose to buy, they survive. If they don't choose to buy, they don't survive. There's only so much we can do.
Definitely.
So it's everyone's responsibility in this industry to educate and to be like, this is what we have to do as a society now. And many people choose not to, and that's their choice. But we would like to do our part in maintaining those cultures and traditions.
Definitely. Okay, I think I've just got one last question. I'm super excited. I'm in love with the canvas shirt and your brand. I want to know when we can see the next design.
Coming soon.
No.
No, we finished the first
Actually,
one.
our shirts in Milan are almost done tomorrow. Actually, they're completed.
Yeah.
But we have to launch it slowly. Eventually, we get to you.
Okay. Cool. Very cool.
Awesome.
Currently, there's the Milan launch, and then Shan is working on our personal one for the next collection. And as she said, this one, the Milan done, is they're ready. They will be coming soon when we do the proper marketing and the proper storytelling aspect. And at the same time, for the whole next month, she's working nonstop on the current designs. And they're ready when they're ready, and you'll be the first to know.
Very cool.
Yeah, so awesome. So I think we are at the end of the show. If you're the audience or listener, you want to know more about House of Rami, you can look at houseoframi.com or their IG, House of Rami. And if you like to have a more physical touch of feel, you can go to Unplug. They have online as well, but if you want to see, it's on Unplug, right, Amia?
Yeah.
In the shop, right?
Unplug is our
Okay,
first
so-
stock.
Yes, our first ever stockist.
She's
Forever in our hearts.
awesome. So do check them out at Bangsa and have a feel, actually, because I agree, like ham is always known for a bit rougher, but now I'm curious to see how soft it can be.
Softer than
So
lemon.
I'll have a look at it as well. So thank you very much, guys, for taking your time. We wish you a good visit in Italy. Mia, thank you very much for bringing them in and sharing their story. And we hope to hear more from you guys. And for the listeners and viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. Hope to see you next month on another episode of the Green Factor. Till then, thank you and have a green week ahead. Bye bye, guys.